And welcome to Hot News. We are live on Pan-African Television. We are also live on Facebook at Pan-African Television. You can join in the conversation by sending in your views, comments, and contributions on our WhatsApp/text line displayed on the screen. We'll make a time and read all those out for you. You can as well leave your suggestions, questions, contributions, and whatnot on all our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Pan-African Television. I also read all those up for you. You can of course, also go to YouTube if you want to. You can watch us over there. We are live on YouTube at Pan-African Television. My name is Justice Appiah. But those of you watching us on Facebook can share the Facebook Live for other people to also watch tonight's edition of the program. Tonight on Hot News, we are looking at the e-levy once again. But this time around, President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo has spoken on the introduction of an e-levy. And according to the president, the e-levy has caused a lot of or so much unnecessary disputation. However, they will continue to implement it and all of that. Before, that video, let me also remind you that we'll remind ourselves, we'll remind President Akufo-Addo, we'll also remind Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia on some statements they made prior to the 2016 elections on taxations and the fact that they will change this economy from taxation to production. In one of those videos, President Dankwa Akufo-Addo, then candidate Akufo-Addo, actually promised on a campaign tour that they will reduce taxes, they will scrap some of the taxes so that the informal sector will thrive, so that the informal sector, people who are doing their own businesses, would not be burdened with a lot of taxes and all of that. Is that what they are doing today? Are they not acting contrary to the promises they gave to the good people of Ghana prior to the 2016 election? First and foremost, let's listen to President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo on his take, of course, on the introduction of e-levy. Let's listen to him. We'll be right back.
It's not going to be possible for us in Ghana to continue forever to be dependent on foreign grants and foreign loans to keep our economy going. We ourselves will have to find the money for our development. And that is the reason why it's become necessary for us to introduce these measures like this famous tax, which has caused so much unnecessary, in my view, disputation. But nevertheless, we will continue. We will, I'm determined to persevere, to make sure that we find the means to address some of the issues that you have got. It cannot be done other than through government. Government doesn't have any money on its own. It has money from the taxes of the people. That is the only way in which it raises money to be able to carry out its work as a government. But we will continue to work.
Well, that was President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo speaking on the introduction of the electronic transactions levy. You know that there has been a lot of issues surrounding the introduction of a levy. The government wants to pass or approve it. The minority says no. The opposition is saying no. Not just the opposition, but civil society organizations have also waded into the argument. Some ordinary Ghanaians have also rejected vehemently the introduction of the e-levy. But government at all costs would want to continue with its implementation. Questions people are asking is that since when did government know, since when did President Akufo-Addo know that taxes are what we should use in developing the country? Since when did they know that introduction of taxes to develop the country is the way to go? Because prior to 2016, they promised the good people of Ghana that they are coming to scrap some taxes they described at the time as nuisance taxes. They told Ghanaians that they will cut some of the taxes, they will reduce some of the taxes so that doing business in Ghana will become very comfortable for the ordinary Ghanaian. Is that what they are doing today? Today, President Akufo-Addo is saying that in every country, taxes are what are used in developing those countries and all of that. And so Ghana is of no exception. And so the introduction of e-levy, he sees no reason why it should generate such unnecessary disputation and all of that. But let's remind ourselves and remind President Akufo-Addo on a statement he made prior to 2016 when he was on a campaign trail, asking Ghanaians to vote for him on taxation. Let's listen to him. We'll be right back.
The
pesa me boa ankwankwa adwumayɛfoɔ na to bebrea ya je ye wudi ade ya no iba betwem nyina ma hyase etwetwem baako
was President Dankwa Akufo-Addo prior to the 2016 elections, when he was promising the good people of Ghana of, of course, reducing some of the taxes to make sure that doing business in this country is very comfortable for the ordinary Ghanaian and all of that, and so that we would not burden Ghanaians with a lot of taxes. The assumption was that the previous government introduced a lot of taxes, and at the time those taxes were burdening, the ordinary Ghanaian and businessmen in this country and all of that. Hence the promise to cut off some of those taxes, to reduce some of those taxes, and of course to change the country, the economy, from that of taxation to production. Now, it wasn't just President Akufo-Addo who made similar statements. Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia also made a similar statement prior to the 2016 election. At the time, he was the vice presidential candidate to President Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Let's listen to the vice president. We'll be right back.
It is important to emphasize, for the record, that measured in terms of today's dollars and cedis, no government since independence has had the amount of resources in terms of tax revenue, cocoa exports, gold exports, oil revenues, and loans as the two NDC administrations between 2009 and 2016. Under the 8 years of the MPP government, from 2001 to 2008, taxes and loans only amounted to 20 billion Ghana cedis. In contrast, taxes, loans, and oil revenues alone over the last 8 years would amount to 248 billion Ghana cedis. So, what you see in the diagram, in the graph there, the Mills Mahama government over the last 8 years would have had more than 12 times the nominal resources that the MPP had, 12 times the number. The question, therefore, that Ghanaians should be asking is, how has the management of the huge resources at the disposal of the John Mahama government impacted on the economy?
Well, that was Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana right there, and that was prior to the 2016 election. I think at one of his, lectures and all of that. Today, Ghanaians are asking the same question. You have borrowed in excess of over 200 billion. You have borrowed more than, of course, any government has borrowed in the history of this country. How are you accounting for those borrowing? What impact have you made with those borrowings? During COVID-19, the country received a lot of donations and all of that. We went for even a loan from the World Bank. The question is, how are we accounting for those monies? Why then would you turn back and tell the good people of Ghana that you are now introducing e-levy, and without the e-levy, the economy will crash? Who would believe this? Unfortunately, Ghanaians are kicking against the e-levy. Ghanaians are saying that this is not what we subscribed for. Yes, you've heard the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, right there prior to the 2016 elections. And when he was talking about taxes that were introduced by the previous government, the borrowings, the monies they received. In fact, they received huge sums of monies. And he was asking them what they really used those monies for. The good people of Ghana are asking similar questions today, that what has this government used the monies they've borrowed, those that they got from COVID-19, the donations, the borrowings and all those things, what they have used it for and all of that. They are asking, if you have had those huge sums of monies with nothing to show, how then are you able to account for just about 6.9 billion or 7 billion that we have projected to have gotten from the e-levy when approved and all of that? Ghanaians are asking that question as well. But it didn't end there. The same Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, when he was interviewed on a sister station, said that he doesn't think that mobile money transfers should be taxed. And you know that the electronic transactions, levy would affect mobile money and all of that. He, in his view, thought that, look, a lot of people who are using mobile money are poor. For that matter, mobile money shouldn't be taxed. Let's listen to that bite. We'll be right back.
The point is that you are not taxing mobile money, and it is, for me, my view and that we should not tax mobile money, because mobile money transactions, a lot of the people who are using these transactions are very poor people. Someone will get sent 5 cedis on mobile money. Why would you want to tax that? But we want to increase economic activity and the use of that mobile money. So
that was the Vice President of the Republic, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, right there. And you've listened to the statement he made. So the question is, what has changed? What has changed today that people who don't believe in, taxing mobile money transactions and all of that today have turned around taxing same transactions? What for? You believe that, yes, a lot of people who are using mobile money are poor, and for that matter, those persons are not supposed to be taxed. Today, we are introducing the e-levy, and in fact, we have introduced it. We are here to approve it, and we are looking for every ways and means to approve this levy. A levy that Ghanaians are uncomfortable with, Ghanaians are not happy with, a levy that everyone has been talking about, a levy that civil society organizations are kicking against, a levy that minority group in parliament have kicked against, a levy that the ordinary Ghanaian, of course, is also kicking against. But government says, look, no matter what the situation, we will pass it, we will approve it, we will tax Ghanaians, we will force it the throat of Ghanaians, we will force it down the throat of Ghanaians. Exactly, that is exactly what they are trying to say, or they are trying to do. Because the finance minister is moving from one city to the other. The last time they were in Koforidua, this time around they went to the Western region, and they're saying that they are having consultations with stakeholders, of course, to educate them, to make them understand what the e-levy is really about before its approval. Let's see how things pan out, going forward. But I've been joined in the studio by Usman Ayariga, member of the NDC communications team. We're also expecting Kofi Ntiamwa, who is a member of the New Patriotic Party communications team, to join us in the studio for the discussion. Usman, good evening.
Good evening, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you too?
We are suffering in this economy. That's all I can
You are
say.
suffering. You don't look like somebody who is suffering anyway.
Well, it's written all over my face. As you can see, I'm not smiling. I woke up this morning and realized the exchange rate now, the CD against the dollar is at 6.75.
6.75.
Yes.
I have to go and change mine tomorrow.
6.75 to the dollar, and the pound is almost 10 Ghana cedis. The pound is 9.75.
I see.
The dollar is at 6.75. Today alone, fuel prices have gone up twice. Today, this is the first time in the history of Ghana since Nkrumah's time.
How much is a litre?
Now we don't even know. The litre is around 7. I mean, gold now says it's 7.00.
Right.
I think when you go to Shell, it's around 7.2, and Shell has different. I think they have what they call the V power.
Yes.
That is around 7.5.
Very well.
You go to Total, it's around 7.12. It's hovering around 7.1 to 7.5. That is where we are as a country.
Right.
They wake up in the morning and the fuel prices go up twice within 24 hours. You wake up in the morning. Last night we slept. The dollar was at 6.45, and today it's at 6.72. This clearly shows the high level of mismanagement of the economy from Nana Addo to Bawumia. And of course, we all knew and saw what Bawumia did prior to the 2016 election.
Very well.
So many rhetorics trying to be the all-in-all Adam Smith of our time, trying to tell us that he is the beginning and the end of Ghana's economic problems. But what do we see? Gross mismanagement of the economy, excessive spending. reckless management, and above all, the ignorance as to how to even manage the economy is what is even sickening.
Very well.
It's sickening to everyone. And
let me come back to you once again.
Yes.
Let me also remind our viewers that we have invited a member of the New Patriotic Party communications team, and as of when he joins us, he'll be part of the discussion. We have invited him. He had accepted to be in the studio. We are here still waiting for him. The program will continue, though. The program would continue anyway. But as and when he joins us, he will be part of the panel. So it doesn't look as if we've not invited, or we've just invited one side to, come and discuss the issue. Anyway, you can go ahead.
Well, his government has given him a very bad case. So even if he comes here, it's very difficult for him to defend his government. So if he better not come, because what we have for him today will be fatality. So back to the matter. It's rather unfortunate that Bawumia, hitherto the 2016 election, could move from radio station to radio station, from TV station to TV station, propagating all the economic theories as if he was the one who propounded them. He was the one who was able to calculate them and put them together, forgetting that there's a total disconnect between his rhetoric and reality. Bawumia at the time made us understand that we didn't have to borrow, and that we're engaging what was known as reckless borrowing. Now, what they have also forgotten is that even though John Mahama was borrowing, we were borrowing and investing in the economy that increased the GDP of this country. So if you realize that we had infrastructure such as the airport, the 200 secondary schools we were building, all of that includes to what is calculated to give us our GDP.
Right.
So at the end of the day, even if you borrow more, because your GDP has expanded, the percentage of debt to GDP ratio will still shrink. But what do we see today? Today we are now the devil with the fire, whether the debt to GDP ratio is actually 83% or 74%, because they are saying now we shouldn't include the petroleum debt and other debt to it, so meaning that it cannot be included.
We'll
now,
to the debt to GDP
yes,
ratio. But President Akufo-Addo has waded into the argument of this introduction of e-levy and all of that, and I believe that you've listened to him. He said that the introduction of e-levy has caused an unnecessary disputation. However, they'll continue, of course, to go ahead with the approval and all of that of the e-levy, because he thinks that every country use taxes to develop themselves and all of that, and so Ghana is of no exception. And
I can understand if Akufo-Addo says the introduction of the e-levy has brought about unnecessary disputation, because he doesn't understand the hue and cry of the ordinary Ghanaian. He doesn't understand what is happening to the ordinary Ghanaian. He doesn't even understand what is happening to the same people who voted for him in 2016. He doesn't understand the same people he went around campaigning to and begging them to vote for him. He doesn't understand the pain that we are going through as a country. That is why he can sit about and say whatever he wants to say. He's sitting in the comfort of his home, going around in presidential jets, private jets, being chartered at the expense of you and I. Why should you and I go about paying this e-levy for Akufo-Addo to continue enjoying? Now we are about complaining, and our members of parliament are also making a good case for us. Now you tell us that it's unnecessary. I don't blame him for saying it's unnecessary, because he doesn't understand the pain we are going through. He doesn't understand. After all, he has been able to achieve his lifelong dream of becoming president. So he doesn't understand. I'm coming to that.
I'll let you go to that point. But what is wrong if we raise the needed capital? We would need to show up our revenue as a state domestically. This is one of the conditions.
Justice, my brother. We cannot raise the needed revenue. Now, if you check the budget deficit, what is the budget deficit? It's at 7.4% of GDP, and that gives us 37 billion Ghana cedis of budget deficit. Now, 37 billion of budget deficit. E-levy, even if it goes through in its entirety, including all the anticipations and propagations, mean that we're just going to make 7 billion. So the 30 billion, where are we going to get it from? E-levy cannot save us. Where the country has gotten to, where Akufo-Addo and Bawumia have finally sunk this country to, e-levy cannot save us. E-levy just bringing us a paltry sum of 7 billion Ghana cedis.
Right.
What we need now, as a result of our budget deficit, is 37 billion Ghana cedis. So how can e-levy save us? How can the president expect me to believe that the country is looking for 37 billion, and now you want us to go through all this suffering to raise 7 billion, and you want me to understand this economic analysis you are giving me? I find it very pathetic that Akufo-Addo, who went around campaigning and telling us that yet is so and so a comedy today is singing a different song. It's very normal that the same mouth you used to sing the song for you to come to power is the same mouth you are using to sing a different song. Trying to tell us that we are not suffering.
I agree that countries are developed by the taxes they introduce and the taxes paid.
Yes, countries are developed by the taxes they use, but countries are not developed as a result of the taxes they raise. That is the problem. It's the mismanagement.
Are you saying
of the
that this government is mismanaging the taxes that are collected?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely.
How is that done?
Brother, e-levy to raise 7 billion, and that they just ended audit report. The country wasted 12.6 billion just on wastage. Now what are we doing? Meaning that wastage alone can swallow the entire 7 billion we're going to raise through e-levy. So countries that raise revenues through taxes do not develop as a result of government knowledge. You understand? If you are going about looking for money, and we had invested in this same economy and not just gone about spending recklessly, trust me, the economy would have expanded and we won't be where we are. We'll be able to
say. If you say government has spent recklessly, which of the expenses they made that is reckless?
Was 6 billion Ghana cedis. Government hotel bills was about 60-something. Direct benefit, nothing. Akufo-Addo was just engaging in unnecessary travels. Last year alone, every time Akufo-Addo traveled out of this country, that was a 6-unit classroom block flying in, 6-unit classroom block flying out. All this investment
policies they have implemented. Where do you think they got the money to do so?
That these spendings that they are spending does not expand the economy. All this does not expand the economy. Buying ambulances tries the price of even the ambulance on the open market. Doesn't expand.
How much is an ambulance on the open market? How much did they purchase or procure, those ambulances?
Yes, I don't want to go into those details, but I know the prices of the ambulance they bought was about 90,000 euros per ambulance. 90,000 euros. The last time we bought an ambulance for the people of Boko Central, it was less than 100,000 cedis. That's less than 35,000 euros. So I don't know where and how they bought their ambulance and how expensive that can be. So if you go about spending this way, at the end of the day, all the monies you borrow, this year alone, our service on interest is supposed to be 36 billion Ghana cedis. Then the next in wages and compensations, another 37 billion Ghana cedis.
Right.
That's not even the principal, just services on the loans alone. This year, we need 36 billion Ghana cedis. And if you check our total revenue in terms of taxation, it's 70 billion. So even to start with, our expenses against what we are raising through taxation has been swallowed. To start with, what we raise through taxes, domestic taxes, are 75 billion Ghana cedis. What we need to service our debt, there's interest, not the principal. The interest is 36 billion Ghana cedis. The other 36.7 billion Ghana cedis we need is just for salaries and compensations we need to pay. So meaning that our taxes have been wiped off. Now, this year alone, we need 8 billion Ghana cedis to pay on some of the principal of the 350 billion Ghana cedis Ghana owes. You understand? So even to start with, government is already on this list. But there is no way out of this.
You are saying that every borrowing you did under your tenure, right, you have something to show for it and all those things. But don't forget that they have also accused you of borrowing for consumption rather than borrowing to invest in the state. If your borrowing within the last 5 years exceeds everyone's borrowing, even the time of Nkrumah, how can you say? But they have disputed that. How? The figures don't lie. They are saying we left this country. In fact, we inherited debt from Kufuor. They are saying that if you look at it percentage-wise, they have no. But you should know. You should know that. You should know. You should know 100% of 50 increment is not the same as 100% of 200 increments. Do you get the mathematics I'm giving you? So if at the end of the day we inherited a debt stock of maybe, I'm just giving you, it's not what the figures are. I think you said you inherited 9 billion. Assuming without even admitting, we inherited 9 billion. And we took it to how much? 122 billion. 122 billion. Yes. Now, I'm coming. Meaning that in nominal figures, we are just borrowed about 90 billion. Let's put the percentage in nominal figures, about 90 billion. Now, if at the end of the day,
we have left you a debt stock of 120 billion, and today it's at 350 billion. How much have you borrowed? How much have you borrowed? So now they want to calculate it in terms of percentage.
Exactly.
Say that okay, because we inherited a debt stock of 9 billion. So if you calculate, that's about 300% or so of it. So because they inherited 100 billion, then they have done maybe about 50%. That is not how to calculate it. If you want to calculate it that way, then we will just be going.
Osman, they are also telling you. Osman, wait a minute. They are also telling you that, well, even if you deal with the nominal figures, you cannot say that over 200 billion borrowed within the space of 5 years is all about borrowing, because you should also know that the 122 billion you left, there should be some interest that were accrued and all of that. And so the amount you are mentioning is what they have borrowed plus the interest on the 122 billion. That is a fair argument.
No, but you see, what you need to also understand is that what kind of borrowing did we borrow? What were the percentages of interest on the borrowing? And what are they borrowing and what are the interest on their borrowing now?
Okay.
You understand? Those are the questions they need to answer. You understand? And that's why we are telling you.
But you don't also paint a picture as to over 200 billion borrowed, over the 200 billion debt in excess doesn't mean that it was all borrowing from this government. But then if that's the case, where's the interest on the accrued on the 122 billion?
As it stands now, we have a total debt stock of 350 billion, of which you say 100 billion was our borrowing. So I mean, per the simple arithmetic, means that you have borrowed 250 billion.
Okay.
You understand? Now, if you want to simplify it by telling us what you are telling us, then meaning that if you borrow 250 billion, then you should have been able to offset the 100 billion. Why aren't you able to offset the 100 billion? You rather borrow on top of the 100 billion we borrowed. You understand? If I owe 10 Ghana cedis and I go to the market and I borrow 20 Ghana cedis from someone else, the wise thing to do is for me to come and offset the 10 Ghana cedis.
You don't borrow to offset your debt.
But that is what we are doing. We are borrowing to offset the interest on the debt and not even the debt. That is what government is currently doing. We are borrowing to offset the interest on the debt and not even reducing the debt. you get a point. So if you borrow at a lower rate, that's what every business does. Even businessmen who run their companies. If you go and borrow from Bank A at maybe a high rate of 20%, and tomorrow you realize that, okay, Bank B is actually giving you a low rate of maybe 10%. The person you borrow so much and you can offset that high rate whilst you try to manage this lower rates. You understand? But unfortunately for this government, we even borrow at lower rates. And this government is going out there on the bond market, of course, because their own friend, the finance minister, his own company of which he has shares in, Data Bank and the likes, are the ones who are busy being the transaction advisors to all this borrowing. So why won't we borrow more? The more we borrow, the richer Ken Ofori-Atta and his company becomes. That is simple. You understand? They are running this country as if they do not have the economic know-how. In fact, Akufo-Addo should be reading Akiola, economics. Baumia himself should be reading, there's this other book, Kokasi-Kola, and the finance minister should be reading Approaches series or something for them to put their economic brains together, because they are simply running this country as if they have no clue. It's either they don't have a clue or they are just being unconscionable, wicked, and reckless. It's as simple as that. So I don't know which of
is the minority also not be unnecessarily, or are they not unnecessarily resisting, the implementation or approval of this e-levy of it?
We are not unnecessarily resisting. We are just voicing out.
Are you not just trying to frustrate government business because you think that we have a hand?
We are voicing out what the constituents are saying. They are suffering. They cannot afford to be taxed for a transaction, which at the end of the day, you are not even sure if you are earning an income in the transaction. What do we tax? So you are just taxing me because
government has made it clear
that because I'm moving money
transactions from 1 cedi to 100 Ghana cedi is not going to be levied.
So all of a sudden,
they've also said that, look, we have gotten the telcos to reduce their charges, and they are ready to reduce it by 25%.
Okay, they are ready to reduce it at 25% to just start the transaction, the e-levy. Are they ready to keep it at 25% for the rest of the e-levy? No. So, I mean, Justice, we should also try to look at it from various points. You understand? The fact that government wants to forcefully introduce this e-levy, they are doing everything possible to introduce the e-levy, forcing the hands of telcos to reduce, the percentage. You know, even though telcos have tried to reduce the percentage, you know, cost of data has gone up. Cost of making phone calls have gone up. So they've just robbed Peter to pay Paul. So aren't we suffering? Haven't our suffering been increased? Just this year, cost of data has gone up. Cost of making phone calls has gone up. Ask anybody who makes phone calls, including you. I know, you know, that cost of data has gone up. Cost of making phone calls has gone up. And they come and tell us they've reduced the cost of transactions so far as mobile money is concerned. Please, it's sad. It's the least to say. The government is clueless. Akufo-Addo is clueless. Thank God he's leaving very soon. 3 more for Nana. But there's 3 more seem so long. Ghanaians cannot wait to vote the MPP out. They cannot wait to send them out, back and back. They send everyone out. The clueless Bawumia, the finance minister, everyone. Send
How do you expect government to run this country?
Justice. The same way we run our lives, that is how we should run this government. You understand? Now, one, you need to understand what you have. And you need to understand what you need as a country. The same way you run your life, when you wake up in the morning, you know that I do not have this amount of money, so I do not even try to go into that venture. If you wake up every morning, your salary at the end of the month is, say, 2,000 Ghana cedis, you do not go to East Legon trying to buy land. Or you do not go trying to drive a Mercedes Benz. You do not go trying to fly first class to America. That is how you live your life, based on the means you have. And government is just an expansion of everyone's life. So if at the end of the day, you wake up every morning as a government, and you know you do not have the resources to buy a presidential jet, yet you want to buy a presidential jet. You do not have the resources to live a lavish lifestyle as a government, yet you want to live the lavish lifestyle.
Are you expecting the president?
Don't forget. No, don't forget. Don't forget.
No, it's not about you coming, but I need to ask you a question.
Don't forget. No,
I'm saying that, are you expecting President Akufo-Addo to travel in an economy class outside this country for government business?
I haven't said Akufo-Addo should travel in an economy.
So, I mean, what's this about? Government is, traveling in a luxurious jet and all of that.
Akufo-Addo can still get to his destination without incurring so much burden on the taxpayers. He can get to the United States, he can get to the United Kingdom, he can get to wherever he's going.
How?
Without stretching so much expenses on the ordinary taxpayer. Now, how have presidents always traveled in this country? If the presidential jets cannot take you to where you are going, what you do is that you book a business class for everyone. And you reduce the size of the people traveling with you. At the end of the day, you don't need all of them in all these meetings you are going to attend. The last time they went for the climate change summit, there were 300 people. 300 people for a climate change summit. Why? Akufo-Addo should be attending an attitudinal and character change summit and not a climate change summit. He must change his character. He must change his attitude towards Ghanaians. How do you take 300 people to go and talk about the weather in climate change conference? When they got there, almost half of them were not attending the program. The other half were actually there attending the program via Zoom. Whilst you could sit at the comfort of your home and still contribute to the program via Zoom. So these are the kind of spending we talk about. But you see, people feel that, okay, how much is it to just fly there, take a few hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it is this little spending from Akufo-Addo that is breaking the economy. We say little drops of water builds a mighty ocean. All this excessive little spending from Akufo-Addo has built a mighty hole in our economy.
It looks as if you are just criticizing, kicking against and resisting without any alternative being preferred.
But we have given them alternatives.
What alternative
we have
are you
told
giving
them,
to government?
first and foremost, we have told them that if e-levies we introduce at all, let us look at the entire structure of the e-levy. Let us look at actually taxing the service and not the clients. You understand? So we tax the service itself. So we rather look at
you're taxing the service in one way. Because this transaction is being taxed.
Yes, so you should
That's a service.
No, you should not when I say the service, I don't mean you and I. The service charge on the transaction. So then what it means that you are further taxing the telcos. You understand? So,
but why would you want the
that's-
burden to be shifted on the telcos rather? Already they are
But
paying
they are the
taxes,
company
a lot
making
of
so much
taxes.
money. They are the companies making so much money. You understand? So they are already paying income tax. They are paying other taxes. So if you want to introduce a tax, tax the company. That was the first option, the first proposal. The next thing is that 1.75 is woefully too much for an economy that is shifting from a cash-based economy to an electronic transaction economy. Once you do that, I think I saw, I read somewhere, they said this year alone, in the first 30 days, as soon as people heard of the introduction of the e-levy, mobile money transactions has dropped. I think Esla was the one saying it herself, the communication minister. Mobile money transactions have dropped. Meaning that people now prefer to deal in cash than mobile money. People already fear, just the fear of it alone has made mobile money transactions to drop. So how are they even going to meet their 7 billion target? It is not feasible. It is not possible. We have told you that let us, if we want to introduce, let's do it systematically and slowly. We can start at 0.5% or even 1%. Why? Uganda, they are doing at 0.1%. Japan and China, they are not even charging the person's transaction. They are charging the service provider. So there are so many ways to go about this, and it is not a bad thing for you to go out there, read how other people have implemented it, the effects and how the transactions go, and try and come and actually have a synchronization of what happens out there and your own traditional living here. Because you see, you cannot just go and pick something from outside this country, come and implement it hook, line, sinker. Don't forget that you also have your own people and they have their own way of living. So you need to also come and look at the way of living and try to introduce it. But if you just go out there and you pick it and you want to implement it, all these are town hall meetings they are doing, it won't near to anything. It's zilch, it's zero. Nothing will come out of it. If they forcefully get the numbers and you can see the gimmicks they are playing, trying to see how they can reduce our numbers. Recently, trying to get the North MP and all of that. We know all this. But our minority MPs remain resolute. They remain steadfast. We are totally behind them. We support them on any day, any time, any night. I support what Bernard Mona is doing in front of Parliament. We will join them there to register our displeasure that you won't pay. We are not ready to pay. We don't have the means to pay. We are already suffering. Akufo-Addo lied to the good people of this country. Bawumia looked into our eyes and deceived us as if he was the all-in-all coming to salvage this country from the economic woes. Little did we know he was just a decoration in very cheap makeup. Now we have seen the real face and we have seen that he cannot offer this country any good thing but the rhetorics and the lies he has always engaged in. So they should try as much as possible to let us know.
Are you aware that you're resistant to the approval of the e-levy is in one way or the other denying the youth of this country, some jobs and all of that? Are you aware that your decision to kick against the e-levy is a decision to, as a matter of fact, deny this country of some developmental projects and all of that? Because according to the finance minister, one of their policies, You Start, that seeks to give jobs to the teeming youth of this country is going to be financed by, the whatever it is we are going to be getting from the e-levy. Infrastructure developmental projects like roads and some other things are also going to be financed through this, e-levy and all of that. Your decision to kick against it is a decision to deny certain people of some of these things. Are you aware?
All of a sudden, all our problems are about to be solved by the e-levy.
In fact, the Agric Minister also said that farmers are not going to... Wait a minute. In fact, the Agric Minister has also said that farmers are not going to be getting fertilizers if we kick against the approval of the e-levy. I'm sure you heard him.
I said, all of a sudden, all of Ghana's problems are being solved by the e-levy. And the simple arithmetic I've shown you just shows that even if the e-levy is implemented and we have the entire 7 billion, our budget deficit is 37 billion. So the other 30 billion, where are we going to get it? That was a question I expect if the MPP rep were here, or even the finance minister.
But what the finance minister in a way answered that he said,
how is he going to get that 30
the finance minister said the finance minister said we need the e-levy to show up the revenue of this country. In other words, the e-levy is not what takes care of every problem of this country. But we need it. It's a necessary evil.
How did we get here as a country? It wasn't us. It was them. So the first and foremost is, how did we get here as a country? I've said it over and over again. As a result of their reckless spending, their reckless living, their reckless lifestyle. So not until we stop that, even if we introduce e-levy and of its kind 5 times, we will next year still be here talking about budget deficits. You understand? It's sad, Justice. It's pathetic. It's disheartening. It's heartbreaking to realize the country we all have tried to build would just be brought down by these so-called MPP men who claim, they say we have the men, we have the men. Today they are not talking about the men. I mean, I don't know what they've become. They've become little boys. In fact, they become babies in Pampers. So that is what it has become of them. So, Justice, I mean, not that we just sit on air and seek, but we are suffering. We are suffering. People are suffering. Justice. Maybe you have no idea, but people are suffering. An introduction of this e-levy. People do see, Justice, we are suffering.
There were taxes you introduced.
That is all I can
there
tell
were
you.
taxes you introduced somewhere around before 2016 elections, 2014, 2015, thereabout. There were taxes you introduced. And Ghanaians were equally not comfortable with, but you did. Why are you denying this government of introducing the e-levy in order to do whatever it is they want to do with it? In the interest of the state.
Justice, most of the, I can understand when you say we also introduce taxes.
But didn't you introduce taxes?
Oh yes, every government introduced.
There were taxes you introduced at a time where some Ghanaians even described those taxes as nuisance taxes,
Yes.
including the taxes on Chalewoti and all those things, even condoms. There were taxes on it. You recall?
I recall.
Exactly. So why are you denying this government, of introducing a tax, a levy?
But those taxes were targeted at certain products that were supposed to be brought in. And of course, sometimes you target a certain group to either reduce its importation or try to increase its manufacturing within the country. You understand? But when you introduce a tax that universally affects everyone and everyone is suffering, then it becomes a problem. And remember I told you that every time we introduce a tax, we introduce its purpose. We introduced ESLA. We told you of its purpose. We introduced other taxes of which we knew that they were targeted at solving.
But they've told you the purpose of e-levy. Did they not tell you? They've told you the purpose of e-levy.
As it stands now, all they are telling us is that the country cannot work without e-levy. As it stands now, that is the only thing they are telling us, that nothing can work. The road minister says if no e-levy, he cannot build his roads. Agriculture minister says no e-levy, we won't get fertilizer. Finance minister says no e-levy, we cannot get jobs for the youth. They are just trying to patronize the youth with this e-levy. Who again? Everyone is saying no e-levy, nothing can work for them. How did we get here? That we need just 7 billion to take care of 37 billion deficit. I don't get it. That's why I said the finance minister needs to go back and read his economic books very well, because I just don't get the balancing. In fact, basic balance, we are looking for 37 billion. There's 37 billion deficit. Now you want to tax all of us to go through all the suffering to raise 7 billion. Of which we are not even sure the 7 billion in itself can
That's
be
a
raised.
projection.
That's just a projection. You understand? The first thing you should be doing is to cut most of the spending, cut the reckless spending, restructure your budget with what you have. If there's other revenue that will come in, that is an added on. But you don't draw a budget which is excessive and now be introducing certain things that you pull this from here, you pull that from here. Even let's assume without admitting that the e-levy goes through. Government gets the 7 billion, which is not possible or practicable. Where are we going to get the 30 billion from? Because government now cannot go out to the open market and borrow. We cannot float bonds. We'll be forced to do an internal borrowing. Then it will shrink local businesses.
Do you agree with the former member of parliament for New Joburg South constituency, Dr. Mark Osei-Sibe-Iboa, that government should rather consider going to IMF?
That is the only way out. Not that government must consider. That is the only way out. Where it has gotten to. If Ghana were a company, if government were a company, we will tell you that the company is just been, very soon the company will be unable to meet its debt, so it's soon becoming insolvent. If Ghana were a company, you understand, and it will soon be going into what we call administration, meaning that government would have taken over the company and run the company just to save its shareholders and its customers. So from the look of things, of course, we are the customers and we are the shareholders. So we have to be salvaged, because what it looks like is that the directors of the country or the directors of the company, the president, his ministers, are mismanaging us. So the only way out for us to go to the IMF, for them to be able to guide us as to how, because all we need is fiscal discipline. Not until we get that right, then forget any amount of money. Even if we raise 40 billion Ghana cedis, we will still.
You cannot talk about mismanagement of economy without also talking about the challenges faced by this government. COVID-19 is one of the things that ravaged this economy.
Every day they use
that this government is actually confronted with.
They use COVID-19 as an escape route. Even in the midst of COVID-19, Ghana's GDP, economy at the time, grew at 0.4%. That of Togo, just here, grew at 1.4%. Cote d'Ivoire grew at 1.2%. So what excuse do you have for us? Your neighbors grew, but you just stayed there, and every day you want to use COVID. In fact, they rather use COVID as a means to further lavishly spend money from this country. Do you know COVID meetings and seminar, just COVID meetings that people were even told to have their meetings and conferences via Zoom, was about 30-something million Ghana cedis.
Right.
Just meetings, of which we all knew that at the time there was a lockdown, everyone was home. Veronica buckets were bought for over 200 million Ghana cedis. Veronica buckets. Hand sanitizers were bought for over 200 million Ghana cedis. I haven't seen any hand sanitizers. Nose masks were bought for over 200 million Ghana cedis. So even the COVID was also used as a tool for government to spend recklessly. So they cannot come and tell us that COVID was part of the reason why we are where we are. They rather use a COVID as a means to spend more money. Monies they cannot account for. And they tell, oh, it was down, it's a certificate of agency because of the agency and the COVID and etc. But we all knew what happened. So if you use COVID as an excuse to further, shrink this country, then you cannot use COVID as an excuse to come and tell us that because of COVID you had issues with the economy. Other economies were growing, even in the midst of COVID. Your own neighbors, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, they grew. So what excuse do we have?
Well, the e-levy is still in limbo. I mean, it's still before Parliament. We don't know when that is going to be relayed in Parliament once again for voting or deliberations on. What are your expectations? I mean, any day, any time Parliament will decide to revisit that matter.
Well, for me, the only thing I expect is for the minority to stay resolute. They should stay focused, and we are solidly behind them. We will continue to fight against these draconian taxes, these taxes that are draining us, these taxes that are actually going to further impoverish the already poor Ghanaian. We are solidly behind our MPs, and we pray they continue to fight this fight on our behalf. That is all we can say.
Right, thank you so much for coming. I'm so grateful for your time, Usman. Unfortunately, we are unable to, probably have, we are unable to have the MPP rep in the studio, but we had invited him. We did. We had invited him to be in the studio for this discussion. He accepted to be here. Unfortunately, he's not been here with us. We don't know what actually prevented him from coming, but thank you all so much for watching. Make a time with me, same time tomorrow. My name is Justice Appiah, and the show has been Hot News. Goodbye.